Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sarah van Grennen, aka Mr. VG, and we are going to look at diving deeper and deeper and deeper into inverse operations, meaning solving equations algebraically. So, when we talk about inverse operations, ladies and gentlemen, is in a sense to get rid of something. So, to get rid of a plus, I'm going to subtract. So in other words, if I have positive 3 and I want to get it to 0, I'm going to subtract 3. For minus, it is positive. For times, it is divide. Not because I want to get it to 0, but because I want to get it to 1. So if I've got times by 3, how do I get it to 1? I divide by 3. So that's an interesting way of thinking about it. With plus and minus, I want to get to 0, while with divide and times, I want to get to 1. Interestingly enough, those are the identity elements of plus and minus and of times and divides. I haven't really thought much about it until this now. Man, I love how after 20 years in teaching, I still teach myself some new tricks. So when I look at this, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to try and solve these equations not by inspection, but by algebra. So in other words, not by guessing, but by doing the inverse operations. When you've done these, I want you to then look at the rest of the video and see whether you did it right. When I look at solving for x, I'm going to do something that I told you to not do. But it's important for your future of mathematics. I want you to guess an answer for me. What would you say is the answer for x? So if I look at this, I would say, well, I guess my answer is 13. Now, how did I get to 13? Well, 13 minus 3 is 10. So that is a guess. That is basically what we call estimating. So that if I know that I make a silly mistake and I maybe get to 5, then whoa, that just doesn't make sense. Or if I get to negative 7, that doesn't make sense because my guess was x to be 13. What is the goal of solving algebraically when it comes to just normal x's? So not x squareds or anything else, just x's. The goal is always isolate x. In other words, get x alone. So what is the inverse operation of minus 3 of a negative? It's adding 3 on both sides. Because what I do one side, I've got to do on the other side. So in other words, x, if I look on the left, minus 3 plus 3 is 0, or negative 3 plus 3 is 0, which gives me then just x, because x plus 0 is just x. And on the right-hand side, I've got 13. Is that what I guessed? Yes! So I know that my answer is right, or at least it makes sense. When I look at the second one, I've got x plus 7 equal to 12. So again, before we do algebraically, let's take a guess. What do we guess our x value to be? I'm guessing x must be 5. Let's make sure that I get my x alone. Remember, that's my goal. And if I take to get rid of the positive 7, I'm going to, what is the inverse operation of plus? Well, I'm going to subtract 7. But what I do one side, I've got to do on the other side. So positive 7 minus 7 is 0. And 12 minus 7 is 5. X plus 0 is just x. So therefore, x is equal to 5. Is that what I guessed or close to what I guessed? Yes. So I know that x must be 5. Looking at this one is where life becomes a bit more interesting. 4 times what value must give me negative 8? Well, my guess is going to be that x must be negative 2. But what is my goal? I want to get x alone. So when I want to get x alone, I'm going to look at 4 times x being negative 8. What is the inverse operations of multiplication? Well, the inverse of multiplication, ladies and gentlemen, is dividing. So I'm going to divide the left-hand side by 4 as well as the right-hand side by 4. Now, what happens on the left? Well, 4 goes into 4 once, so I'm left with 1x. On the right-hand side, a negative divided by a positive is a negative, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So therefore, x is equal to negative 2. Is that what I guessed? Yes, that is what I guessed. So ladies and gentlemen, I've got a very sneaky feeling that this is 100% right. For our last sum, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have a look at one of the more difficult kind of sums you're going to get in grade 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 when you're working with division. But what is the inverse operation of division? But before we get there, what is our guess? I'm going to guess that x is 6. Why? Because 6 divided by 3 is 2. When I look at this, remember my goal is get x alone. Taking the sum, I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides. But not just 3 over 1. Why am I multiplying by 3 over 1 on the left-hand side? Because 3 goes into 3 once, so that you see that I'm dividing 3 by 3. I'm applying the normal fractions. What we did in fractions, I'm just applying to equations. If I look on the left, I've left with 1x. On the right-hand side, I've got x to be 6. How does that correspond to that guess of mine? My guess is 100% right. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, and you would have seen that there was 1x, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared. Why did it just disappear? Because 1 times x is simply x. You don't have to write that 1 in front of the x. So, did I achieve my goal? Yes, I did. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the way I want you to think about mathematics. There's a goal in mind. And as long as I've got that goal in mind and I've got a direction to go to. So this is Mr. VG signing out. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you're going to stick with me in our next video where we're going to dive deeper and deeper in different scenarios inside of mathematics. So have a beautiful and amazing rest of your day. Keep well. Cheers.